Hey, I'm Terry Bates here, director at the Cornell Lake Erie Research and Extension Lab, and I'm here with Thom Betts and James Taylor. I'm going to talk a little bit about our variable rate crop load management trial that we ran on Tom's farm this year. So as a background, so we use our spatial data, our spatial soil maps and NDVI maps to line out the pattern that's in the vineyard, and then we make management classifications. So this is one of the vineyards at Tom's place, and the management classifications are looking at small, medium, and large vines. And so now we want to be able to estimate what the crop is in those different zones, and then thin the crop down so that we balance the crop load across that block. And so what do I mean? We use this as our kind of rule of thumb that based on different vine size, we want to hang a different size crop. So small vines need to have a smaller crop to be balanced. Big vines can hang a bigger crop to be balanced. And what we look at is if you're in the red zone, you're well overcropped and you're going to struggle to make sugar. If you're in the orange zone, it's going to be a little bit more balanced. In the white is where we really want to be. And then if you're actually in the blue zone, say frost has caused your crop to be too low, you'll be undercropped, and that will promote more vegetative growth in the vineyard. So in a nutshell, and what Thom can talk about his experience with this, is that in each individual zone, so for the small vines, we estimated what the crop was, and through crop thinning at 30 days after bloom, we brought that zone down into the white. Same thing with the medium-sized vines and the large vines. And so at the end of the season, what we saw was that by bringing it down into the white zone, they harvested first, second week of the season. The fruit was well into the 16 bricks range, and the control rows that we left that were not thinned were they were in the low 15s to high 14s.
I think even down to like 13.5,
So
13.2.
So the bottom line was we used crop thinning at 30 days after bloom to bring the crop size in balance with the vine size in the different zones within that block to get the sugar accumulation that we needed. So I guess the question for Thom would be like, how did he feel his grower experience was in using the technology and trying to hit those crop load targets?
It was all in all, it was a great success this year. This year we ended up crop thinning 60 acres variable rate. For an example, for variable rate, instead of the traditional crop thinning or fruit thinning, is for the traditional fruit thinning with grape harvesters, you would set the machine up in, let's say, just somewhere in a grape row, and you'd set it at 1 RPM, and you'd go through and you would just run 1 RPM through the entire vineyard across all the different zones, which is the vigor or the size of the leaf surface. So in a sense, you would, in the blue zone, which is the larger zone, you would take, let's say, 7 ton of the acre off there. In the green zone, you would be taking 5 ton of the acre, and in your lowest zone, you'd be taking 2 to 3 ton of the acre. And in a sense, on our farm, what we wanted to do was completely make it the opposite, or just take 2 ton of the acre off the entire piece. So how we accomplished that was having the RPMs run at a different number for the small, medium, and large. So then that way, the large vines, being that there's more leaf surface, more fruit, you can take less fruit off with less RPM. So all in all, it was a great success. We feel that in all 60 acres where we did fruit thinning, that we gained tremendous growth over the course of the year, being that we got close to a drought scenario again. Those vineyards that we took the stress off of, they just went right through the season, no black leaf, very little disease. It was very nice to see a third of our farm recuperating and looking better for this next year and the year after. I I felt very nice not having to, in the past, my dad and other growers that have figured out how to do the fruit thinning very accurately. They would try and adjust the picking head by hand and remembering to do it up and down just by memory and looking at the vine, where all I did was run the harvester and turn at the end of the row. The field computer controlled everything else. So that way I didn't have to do anything but drive and talk to riders when they showed up to look to see what I was doing. So,
So this was your prescription map.
yes, that was my prescription map. So, in the dark color, it was, let's say, 325 RPMs. The green, it was 315. And in the blue, it was 300 RPMs, just for examples.
So I mean, this is it's nice what's happening here. So whenever you're doing site-specific management, the really tough thing is, well, A, making money out of it. It's always a tough thing. But B, having the right decision. So we've got a situation here where the decision's fairly easy to know because of the science that's been done in this area over the last 30, 40, 50 years. So we know what size vines they are. We know what fruit they should have on there. So the decision's easy, and now the technology is actually there to be able to actuate that decision. The more complex the decision is, the more viticulture, the more agronomy that comes into it, the harder it starts to get. So it's a really nice example of simple steps. Effectively, it's not necessarily a cheap step, but it's a simple step. So can you actually say what technology you actually needed to do this?
Yep, I used the Ag Leader 1200 in command field computer display with a 6500 GPS system attached to it with a liquid control module, which the reason why I use liquid control is it's the only way I could adjust the RPMs as I was traveling at a fixed speed, because in grapes it's hard to get technology that we want to use specific for grapes, so we have to convert field crops into what we want to do in grapes. So it's a little tricky, but it's fun to figure out what piece of equipment we have to use and how to use it. Crop thinning is just one example. It's something that we're very good at and something we lean to year in and year out. You can do a lot of other different variable rate implements to whatever you want to do on your farm. Just make sure you validate what you want to do and what your map means as far as what you want to do.
Right. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comment section below.